webcam streaming is currently unavailable.
Why? Not sure.
Because of the internet?
Okay.
Great. Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear?
Hello.
Hello. And check. Yeah, I think it's fine.
All right, great. Let's get started. Thanks to everyone for joining our live AMA with two of IoTex's co-founders today. Today we have a very special treat for you. We have co-founder Jing Sun and also co-founder Xinxin Fan. And to really kick off our live AMA today, we're going to have them just start by introducing themselves. So maybe Jing first.
Okay, hi everyone. Probably you already met with me in the last video. My name is Jing. I'm the co-founder of IoTex. So my background is from the venture capitalist. So in IoTex, I'm in charge of building up the ecosystem and the community.
And Xinxin?
Hi everyone, I'm Xinxin. I'm the head of cryptography at IoTex. My background is in cryptography, for sure. I got my PhD almost 10 years ago. I'm mainly leading the research and the development activities in IoTex.
So we're very happy to have Xinxin and Jing with us today. I'm Larry, business development at IoTex, and today's topic of the AMA is more focused on technology. We have our mainnet preview that's going to be coming out in a couple weeks. Look out for it sometime in November. And today we're here to answer some of your pre-submitted questions, and also we're going to do some live questions. So at the end of this AMA, feel free to add questions to the YouTube chat, and we'll be sure to take them one by one. But yeah, just to get started, maybe we can start with just some topics or questions around the mainnet preview. The community has been looking forward to subchains, which is scheduled to be released in the upcoming mainnet preview. Is everything on track in regards to that?
Yeah, I think so. Everything's on track now.
Chains. What else can we look forward to in the mainnet preview?
And probably some initial effort for the cross-chain communications.
Right. So this is a big topic that a lot of projects are working on. This concept of cross-blockchain communication or cross-subchain. Can you maybe explain in layman's terms to people watching, what is the challenge associated with having blockchains communicate, and how does IoTex go about solving that problem?
Because IoTex blockchain has two layers. We have the main chain as a basic trust root for the entire systems, and all the subchain will be operating separately, probably for the different IoT applications. The cross-chain communication and the subchain itself is already a very big topic. When you try to, for example, transfer the asset among the different chains, among different applications, due to they are completely different in nature, it's already has a challenge how you convert the asset from one chain to the other chain, and how to do the exchange of the asset on the chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Got it. Very cool. So yeah, look out for the mainnet preview, and we have some other questions related to that coming up. So, but before we jump into that, we've gotten questions. Very surprised about the number of questions we got from different countries, and this next question is kind of related to the international nature of our project. So one question we got is, do we have any plans for internationalization? Very often, there's language barriers associated. So how does IoTex plan to reach out to different countries in the future?
That's a great question. Actually, we are already an international company. From day one, we already just committed to building up the global company or organizations. So actually right now, if you look at our Telegram channel, we already have different language channels like Russian, Korean, Vietnamese, Turkey, and Italian. Besides Chinese and also English. I think just like we are very just like putting the importance on how to encourage more community supporters from different countries. That's why we also, recently, maybe you already noticed, we launched the International Ambassador Program. And we are very lucky to have a lot of applications. So very soon you will see more, international channels will be launched. Right? At the same time, actually, just like in terms of the development, the market expansion and also the technology development, we'll also go global and take a very, very international strategy. So right now we have office in Silicon Valley, Singapore, Korea, and also we have technology team in Vietnam. So later you will see more expansion into different countries.
Yeah, and I think a lot of interesting things, not just on the tech side, but also starting to kick up things very heavily on the community expansion and also the business development side of things. So we're very excited about that. But just to jump back into the tech, so the next question that we got relates to how do we think about combining blockchain and IoT together, because there's some issues in current day where IoT is very resource and cost ineffective. So how do we think about combining blockchain and IoT and making it work?
So yeah, actually, as you all know, the IoT is restricted in all the different aspects in terms of the computing power, memory consumption, also their footprint. So which means when you design the whatever the algorithm or the protocols, you have to keep in mind all those constraints. Especially when you combine with blockchain applications, you have to be carefully design your protocols to see which part you can run in the lightweight IoT device, and which part you need to run on the blockchain. A lot of optimization work needs to be done in order to integrate them well together. I think it's a lot of challenges. We need to solve for the when combining two technologies.
Yeah, and there's a lot of innovation already going on in the current Internet of Things landscape. What are things that you're excited about? New like connectivity technologies like 5G and LoRa and narrowband. Which ones are you excited about in the traditional landscape, and how will that kind of affect the way we design the blockchains?
Recent years, a lot of new various connectivity technologies have been occurred in the market. They solve the particular application for the specific area. For example, the LoRa, you can deploy it around the city and establish connectivity among all the devices. And 5G provided the additional communication channel. You can go through the networks and can quickly reach to your server or reach to other devices. They all have their own advantage and also have their own limitations, which means when you consider building the IoT application, you have to evaluate carefully which technology need to be used for which particular application.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to consider. Is we kind of bundle together the concept of blockchain and IoT together, but it's very use case dependent, like which connectivity mechanisms you use, what kind of devices you use, all need to be optimized to make this work. So yeah, glad that we're thinking about that in such a deep way. The next question is about information security, and I think maybe both of you guys can take a shot at answering the question. Specifically, it's around how, if you were to explain it in a very simple fashion, how does IoTeX achieve data security? IoT devices generally track a lot of very sensitive information, like your location. Wearables will track your biometrics and all types of information. How do we think about securing it both on the technology side, and how do we think about making this a priority on the business side, especially for enterprise? Maybe start with the tech side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, from tech side, actually we consider the design of our entire system very carefully. We have a deep analysis for the data flow in our systems. We try to provide the end-to-end security from starting from the device collecting the data and trace back to how this data will be transmitted and how they will be stored. We take security and privacy quite serious. especially we consider like in Europe the GDPR compliance. We need to work out the solutions to be compliant for certain geographic area. Also, the other core concept we have is privacy by design. Which means we will analyze all the data in the systems and give the user the maximum control what they want to share and to whom and how their data be protected and stored in the systems.
And similar to that, Etho, I think there's they're similar to the IoT, the choice of IoT devices and connectivity. Privacy is a tool in the IoTeX network in the sense that, it's not necessarily that it's privacy by default. You can choose whether to mask the transaction sender, the receiver, or the value, or all of them. And depending on the use case, there are certain trade-offs associated with privacy and throughput. So it's really giving optionality to the developers to take that. So how does that kind of translate to the business side of things?
Yeah, so maybe I also want to, in addition to Xinxin's opinion, I will say maybe the general public, they will always heard about there is a security component, there is a privacy component related to blockchain. But actually, there are also some misunderstanding. Actually, just like the blockchain itself, they don't provide the privacy in native blockchain, right? So in contrast, actually, this is more transparent, provide the transparency, and that's why people can trust, right? So actually, just the privacy is one, native innovation, from very beginning, IoTeX, take and we're working on, right? So, and our, approach will be very different from other, blockchain, which are doing the privacy. We keep it in this, like say, we want the privacy can be really running on top of the devices. So which means just like, even with the constraint of the computation, they still can have the privacy on the Internet of Things, on the devices. That's very important because, we see this is a huge, right now it's a huge bottleneck for the entire Internet of Things to move forward. Because, all get in life every day, everywhere, and, monitor your all, your activities. The privacy is super important. Right. Another thing, just like we also provide the solutions, the other blockchain they cannot provide, which is, we have both, the hardware, the TEE hardware component into it. So we will also leverage on the hardware to provide the privacy as well. So we have different solutions, which will be catered to different, applications.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one thing. And also just like in business, I think, Xinxin also mentioned about, the European, GDPR, which is really serious, standard for all the business have to be compliant with the GDPR, right? So, and also just like in other countries, they are also taking more and more regulations on that part. So when we are building up our blockchain, we need to take into considerations. Blockchain itself is a tech, but actually it's a business solution. Tech is only part of it. So we need to come out with the end-to-end solution, which can really solve the systematic problems in the business scenario.
Yeah,
but that's very important.
Absolutely. And I think we touched a lot about privacy here, and I think privacy and security are very much related. In the blockchain world today, people think about privacy a lot in the sense of financial transactions. The Zcashes and the Moneros of the world, but we're starting to see more projects like Oasis and Enigma working on their privacy platforms. How do you think we get more people to care about data privacy and not just necessarily their financial privacy? What are some steps that we can take to, make consumers actually care about data privacy? Like every other week, there's another huge hack. Facebook's leaking data. A lot of centralized organizations are just getting hacked all over the place, but it's almost to the point where people they're almost expecting it to happen. How do we change the narrative around that? And what's blockchain's role to help with that?
Yes, I think one aspect, is education, and we need to help people to understand how their data are being processed, stored in the system, the entire workflow, and where is place they might be leaked, and to which extent.
Mhm.
I think all those very key information the user need to understand in order to protect their own data or their own valuable data.
Right.
Also, I would say, when people they try new stuff, there is some bottleneck, which is the user experience. So you cannot provide something
Mhm.
new and then want the users to sacrifice the convenience and the user experience. So there is always a combination.
Mhm.
That's why just like when we are just like building up the new tech, we need to put it in our mind how our user will use this tech and how to make it really easy and convenient and also even have some fun. I mean, give them the added value. Always just think about what kind of real value you can deliver to the users. And at the same time, they don't sacrifice their current convenience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thinking about the end-to-end solution and almost mimicking the user experience of traditional companies, but also pushing data ownership and privacy back to the consumer. Yeah. So this next question is around kind of our IoTech's architecture. So one thing that we are driving towards is giving people a lot of flexibility in the way they create their subchains and manage their subchains. And one thing that is unique about our project is we're able to create both permissionless subchains and permissioned subchains. I was just at this conference, a Microsoft IoT in Action conference in Santa Clara yesterday, and a big discussion was had around the concept of private blockchains and whether or not they're achieving the full benefits of blockchain technology. Like some people think it's just a shared database. Other people think that it's sufficient for major corporations like Walmart to mandate all of their contacts to put their data on private blockchains. So how do you guys think about the balance between permissioned and permissionless going forward in the future?
Yeah, I think it's all about the trust in your systems, how you view the trust and what's the business relationship between the different entities. That's one of the decision you need to consider when you choose either permissioned based solution or permissionless. Permissionless blockchain, which means everyone can freely join and contribute to the entire system, which means the application running about that should be for common good. It's good for the entire community. Everyone will contribute that's for good for everyone. So your application have to have this feature. That's the most common feature to consider if you decided to run a permissionless blockchain. On the other hand, permission blockchain is more suitable maybe for the enterprise applications. It's more close to what they're currently working for and the business model. They already have their internal, for example, the IT infrastructure, and building on top of that, you can add the permission-based blockchain to enable other applications. So within the business entity, the different department already have certain degree of trust. Which means the permission-based solution might be more suitable in this case.
Maybe follow up on that a little bit and talk about why the optionality to create both permissioned and permissionless subchains in IoTech's network. Why is that important for kind of go-to-market adoption? We see a lot of enterprise activity already in the private blockchain space. How do we think about joining that movement and while also focusing on the bigger picture about creating our permissionless and public blockchains?
Okay, so when you are looking at our structure, from very beginning, we already think about permissionless will be for the common layer or just like for the common trust layer. But for the application layer, actually just like you need to give them the flexibility for both the permissionless and also permission. The reason is actually just like both sides actually they have their specific user scenarios. Especially right now, just like we are engaging with industry more and more. We talk to a lot of the big industry leaders, right? So all of them actually they are already implementing the blockchain internally, right? But actually just like their user scenarios will be most of the user scenarios will not be applicable to open to the public.
Mhm.
So it will be more like this trust layer want to be open to the multiple parties or related parties, for example, for the supply chain,
Mhm.
right? So this make the permissioned ledger will be more useful for them. Right. So for us, actually, that's why they working with us. When they are building up their systems, they also say even within one single entity,
Mhm.
they have different use cases. Some will be more useful for to adopting the permissionless, and some of them are permissioned. Right. So we provide them the infrastructure which have both the permission and permissionless flexibility. So that's very important.
Absolutely. So this next question that we're going to get into is around consensus. And if you guys haven't checked it out already, Xinxin just released a paper on PBFT with a short-lived signature variant. He and I will be in Toronto next week, where he's going to present his paper at CASCON, which is a big academic-focused conference based in Toronto. But on this topic of consensus, there's one question around the number of distributed nodes that will be reaching consensus once the mainnet is launched. Will these nodes need to, will they be producing blocks and verifying blocks for the root chain, for the subchains, or for both? And how many total nodes will be participating in this first round of block production and verification?
Okay, so at the very beginning of the mainnet launch, the number of nodes running the consensus might be small, since we need a certain time period to attract the different nodes joining the network. It has a certain period of time for the system bootstrapping. The number of nodes might be small, like maybe 20, 30 in this range. Once more and more people join our networks and contribute to the entire system, we may be able to dynamically adjust our consensus group, the size of the consensus group, which will enable the entire system to support both root chain and subchain.
Yeah, from what I understand, there's the auto-scalable nature of the network, in the sense that in the future, in the mainnet, some nodes will be tapped that don't use their own consensus mechanism. And on the other side of it, Xinxin mentioned in the beginning, it's going to be important to bring on different types of master nodes. What's the perspectives on why that's important, and what's our strategy going forward?
Yeah, so I think many of our communities, they are also very clear about the master node and what's the selection, what's the application process. Actually, just like we are in the process of designing the entire the process, right? So I think the application process will be open to our community early next year. Right. So we will, just like Xinxin mentioned, our the entire management will be adjustable. So we will starting from 20, 30 this range, and then gradually enlarge the pool. Right now, actually, just like we already have a lot of the inbound interest and apply for the delegation to us. Most of them, they are already just like in our investor network. They know our progress very well, and they also have their resources, right? So for us, we consider just like we want to, we want those, master nodes. They're not only a player, to help us to, build up the entire network. They also will be constantly to continue to, contribute to the entire ecosystem, because we are building up the public chain, and the ecosystem is very important. So we want to select those, each of them, through their resources, what kind of resources they will bring to. For example, just like we are actively engaged with those open source association, maybe they are IoT related and have a very large, IoT developers, and we want them to join us as a, master node, so that they will help us to approach, a very large pool of IoT related application developers. So such kind of, master node will be very welcome, right, to join. But at the same time, we also welcome, just like our we want our, the barrier. It's like people ask, how many, for example, tokens or nodes they need to have, so that they will be, have the, just reach the criteria. We will say just that we will make sure, the criteria would be not that high, not just like only those very big, holders, they are able to, join our network.
Mhm.
But as long as just like they have, certain number of the nodes, at the same time, they also have the impact. They can just like make the impact into the community, right?
Mhm.
Because, you can also win the votes from the other nodes. That's very, very important.
Yeah, so it's not all about staking. It's
Yeah.
more about how, whether you're a large corporation or an individual,
Yeah.
it's about how you really make an impact and contribution to
Yeah.
the network.
Yeah.
And that should dictate how the voting process will go. So
Yeah.
all part of the design, and looking forward to sharing the full design with you guys
Mhm.
soon in the future. So this next question is around transaction throughput. And, so one area that we're really focusing on is, scalability to support the future massive amounts of IoT transactions in the future. And we're thinking about it both from an on-chain scaling perspective, as well as an off-chain kind of layer 2 scaling perspective with our different subchains. How do you guys think about the prioritization between investing technical resources into the on-chain piece versus the off-chain piece that, a lot of other companies are working on?
I think both pieces are equally important. We are exploring the solutions for both on-chain, how to further improve the performance for the on-chain, even how to improve consensus, how to further accelerate the protocols
Mhm.
on our on-chain. Also, we are also looking at the different off-chain acceleration techniques to see how they can combine with our existing on-chain solutions to further provide the more reliable networks. Also, how we can further accelerate the throughput in our system. I think those are two complementary solutions.
Right. What kind of off-chain solutions are you guys? Like state channels. Obviously, Ethereum with Plasma and all these layer 2 scaling kind of techniques. Any new ones that are very exciting to you guys?
Yeah, I think they have different options, right? You either can run in the payment channel, the 3 channel like the Lightning networks,
Mhm.
or you have the Plasma. You can have the certain properties when running that type of the subchains.
Mhm.
I think they provide the different properties and the trade-offs in their design.
Mhm.
I think we are exploring the different options to see which particular applications can use which type of off-chain acceleration techniques.
I think just like on our testnet, right? I mean, just like on the root chain, without all those sharding tech be implemented, we already achieve around thousands transactions per second, right?
Mhm.
But in addition, actually, just I always in our internal discussions, we always say, hey, a lot of the projects they are talking about the transaction, the throughput. If this is the most important thing right now,
Mhm.
we have a little bit different perspective.
Yes.
Of course, this is important, but actually, just like when this is such early stage, actually the security of the system will be more important,
Mhm.
right? So you cannot want to achieve the very fast throughput and then sacrifice on the decentralization and also the security. So that's
Yeah.
also always a debate, right?
Yeah.
And for
Yes.
us, we feel just that security and the decentralization are very important.
Yeah.
Especially just like if you are building up which is the backbone for so many devices will be running on top of that,
Mhm.
right? Another thing will be if even just like we can build up kind of millions transaction per second mainnet there, if there is no application running on top of that, there's useless, right? So that's why internally we always think actually just like application will drive the infrastructure become a better infrastructure.
Mhm.
Just like Amazon, right? Amazon they build up their own the e-commerce platform,
Mhm.
and then this platform is for e-commerce, right? But because of the huge transaction needed, so they build up the AWS system, which is most advanced system to cater to their needs, and then they open to the public.
Right.
So for us, we are really believe in the needs will drive the infrastructure.
Right.
Right.
It's very
Yeah.
cyclical too. You know, we've read there's a lot of thought pieces around Silicon Valley around this topic of, the infrastructure, the base infrastructure will dictate what kind of applications can be built.
Yes.
And then it's almost cyclical in the sense that another major application will then dictate what infrastructure improvements need to be
Yeah.
had. So how do you guys think about that? There's another question here kind of on this topic in terms of scalability, privacy, decentralization, and interoperability. Which ones would you say are the highest priority? I know it's hard to rank because all of them are very important.
Yes.
But every project has trade-offs. So how
Yes.
do we think about those kind of trade-offs in IoTeX network?
Yeah, I think that, those trade-offs mainly comes from your real world applications, right? If you consider the IoT applications, those are smaller resource constrained devices. Some of them just most of the time in the sleeping mode, right?
Mhm.
And they only occasionally report the data to the gateway. Some more powerful IoT devices they may doing data streaming every few seconds.
Mhm.
It's all different features for the IoT applications, which means for the different applications we need to make trade-off among those three.
Mhm.
Some of applications the user data or privacy is more important. We may put more effort on those aspects.
Mhm.
Other applications they may only want to streaming data to the chain. The scalability maybe is more important.
Mhm.
We try to keep those flexibility in our design, and later on when we build the real applications with our industry partners, on the different substrates we will provide different features.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I will say just like in this stage, different projects they are working on different part, or just they're focusing on different part,
Mhm.
and also because of the beauty of the open source, nature,
Mhm.
right? So those projects, if they are really doing great on certain part, and we can also adopt their technology. But at the same time, just we will see we are more focused on the privacy and also the interoperability.
Mhm.
Because to be honest, we cannot find any good solution on these two sectors. So we need to build up them by ourselves,
Mhm.
and we are also willing to open source it later so that the other blockchain they can use it.
Yeah.
So that's very important,
Mhm.
right? So we will say just like right now the most difficult part or the challenging part will be privacy and interoperability.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why we are also deliver I think we are just like moving fast on this part and
Mhm.
deliver the progress very soon. Our the developer community, they will see how we solve the privacy and also interoperability
Right.
very soon. Yeah.
And one thing that I've always tried to assess when I look at new projects is,
Yeah.
a lot of people in the blockchain industry, they think of these concepts as very binary.
Mm.
Like either it's fast or it's not. Either it's private or it's not. Security is good or it's not.
Mhm.
But there's certain levels to this kind of stuff and certain levels of sophistication. With scalability, it's easy because there's a number,
Yeah.
1,000 TPS, this or that. For security and reliability, how do you think about what are the different kind of tiers of security and reliability, and where are we right now, and how do we kind of how do we think about kind of quantifying that?
Yeah, I think when you consider security or either privacy in your application, which security level or privacy level you can achieve depending on many different factors.
Mhm.
Yeah, for example, if I only give you 5 cents for your budget to build a device for me, how can you reach a very high security, right?
Mhm.
You even cannot add a security memory or security storage in your system
Mhm.
to protect the key. The best thing you can do is just you store the key and frequently update it.
Mhm.
That's the best thing you can do because you don't have that much budget. That's exactly the case for the very low cost of RFID. Right? You don't have the much resource available on those very smaller or very cheap devices, but you still can provide a certain degree of security.
Mhm.
However, if you give me $10 million, I can build an ultra secure device for you. Oh yeah, that's a totally different story.
Right.
I think all those considerations need to tie exactly to the application you are trying to build, right? What's your setting? What's your system model? What's your attacker model you are considering? And under those reasonable assumptions, you build a solution.
So along the same note, what kind of progress have we made to enhance the security and reliability? And what can people look forward to leading up to the mainnet regarding these two topics?
Regarding to these two topics, on the one aspect is when we design any of our algorithm and protocols, we keep in mind all the constraints we have when running on the IoT devices.
Mm-hmm.
That's one aspect. How we design the lightweight node, make our client can easily run on the wide range of IoT devices.
Mm-hmm.
That's approach we are currently adopt.
So it's more at the primitives level,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's more around, like the papers you're working on right now are working on, redefining and making certain trade-offs to make certain industry standard technologies even more suitable for what we're trying to build.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. Exactly.
Very cool. This next question here is around implementing products into a real world environment. How do we kind of think about motivating people to use blockchain products? Right now, even in the enterprise world, people are starting to get comfortable with blockchain technology, but are extremely scared of any kind of token mechanisms or anything that sounds very foreign to them. So how do we think about working on the adoption part of things and educating the enterprise side?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So actually, because recently we are engaging with a lot of the industry, and we understand more about how they think about things. To be honest, it's just like for the industry, they are clear in two things. One is if we adopt this new technology, if it will affect the security of the entire system.
Mm-hmm.
So the security concern will be super important. First, you need to remove their concern about the security will be just like what kind of value this new tech can provide to their system. If this will be to really increase the productivity, or it will reduce the cost, or it will just increase the trust.
Mm-hmm.
So for the blockchain itself, I will say the trust is still the most important value the enterprise can achieve,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in terms of token part, to be honest, for them right now is still a big concern because they don't want the token itself be too complicated, or just as their service they have to handle with the price the up and down.
Mm-hmm.
So that just like why actually when we are designing our system, we don't really need them to worry about the price issues,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we can either just like incorporate, for example, those stable coin concept
Mm-hmm.
to make sure just like actually the token economy is just like it's a function, which means just like all those token transaction can be embedded in the system, but not a payment layer which is on top of the system.
Mm-hmm.
So this will give them much easier those micro payment
Mm-hmm.
function, right? Make them much easier to do a lot of the autonomous transactions.
Right.
So this is the function side.
Yeah.
They don't need to worry about actually just like this part we can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's all about mimicking the user experience. It all
Yeah.
goes back to that,
Yeah.
both on the consumer side and
Yeah.
the enterprise side.
Yeah, I would say for the consumer side, I would say still I think all the industry, the entire industry, they are facing the problem which is the mass adoption, right? So right now it's still kind of keeping into a niche crypto and CZS. It's not just like really reaching to the mass adoption yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we can through a lot of different ways. For example, just like you need to let them know how this token or how this crypto economy can be used in their daily life.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we see a lot of the companies, they are doing kind of using for example those easy payment hardware or the e-commerce or the game, to bring them to the adoption. Say, hey, actually it's easy, right? It's easy, and also you can really just like benefit from the crypto economy, and it's easy for you to pay, using the crypto. So that's all those great tools or great approach to reach the mass adoption.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've been working with a lot of our strategic partners that we've both announced and haven't been able to announce yet. And I think the big trend we're seeing is a lot of these things that people make noise around is, oh, we have to use token.
Yeah.
We have to change the way, we manage systems of record.
Yeah.
All of these things are kind of overshadowed by the new possibilities. Once you put like a real proof of concept in front of them and make them understand what exactly blockchain can do to complement their processes, not replace what they're trying to build, then they start to become very much more receptive. But it's also very important to build in kind of the traditional seamless user experience.
Yeah, and for Outtest specifically, actually just like we will have even just like, more interesting ways to get close to our, users. Because there are already a lot of the the hardware device manufacturers, they approach us. They want to just like building the new type of blockchain enabled hardware and using the make good use of the advantage of the blockchain. So those are real products, and it's to consumer. So people can buy those consumer products, and then they can just like have the first-hand experience how the blockchain or the crypto they will matter to their daily life or deliver have a really good experience. Yeah, and also there are a lot of the e-commerce companies also approach us, those hardware consumer product e-commerce, and if we can have those more close to user applications, which is very handy to the users, both on the mobile or on the website, and they can buy, they can pay, they can engage, and it will definitely drive the mass adoption or the awareness for the mass public to adopt that technology.
Absolutely. And more, we're very excited about the technological and also the business development things going on. That's it for the pre-selected questions. Now we're going to jump into some of the live questions. So we already have a good list going, but if you have any other questions, feel free to comment in the chat section, and we'll answer accordingly. And I know this is AMA focused on tech, and second priority is business, but obviously the trading aspect has to come in at some point. So one of the questions here is IoTeX is showing a lot of growth in both price and kind of number of lines of code, and a lot of different metrics showing the progress of our project. Why do you think that is? As far as are people starting to recognize our project more?
Yeah, first of all, just like Outtest as a tech team, so we have no control about how the market, the market activity, right? But actually, just like it really reflects, the progress, Outtest achieved both on the tech side and also on the business side. So actually, on the business side, recently actually we made huge progress. We are more and more engaging with the top players in the industries, and also just like make great progress to deliver the product, right? And for example, just Larry also recently showed our real life demo with NPN. So showcase what's the future Airbnb will look like using the blockchain technology and also the advanced decentralized networking technology, right? So and this demo is really successful in London, the TIP, right, summit, which is a telecom, summit. And also we are invited by the CES, and as one of the only blockchain companies, and we will showcase the demo in the CES event, which is in November, right? And also just that we will attend the CES show in January in Las Vegas, right? So all of this kind of the great progress, make our technologies not only just like, be understandable to the tech team, but also, really, it's a real consumers, they can feel, they can touch and things, right? Another thing very important that we make great progress with the enterprise. For example, just like recently we joined the Trust IoT, which is association really, fosters, the intersection between IoT and blockchain, right? Which is initiated by, those big companies like Bosch, like, Cisco, like, Foxconn, all those big companies. And Larry also, made the presentations, and we joined the network. It's not a big network, but in all the players, they are in the, IoT industries, right? And surprisingly, actually most of the big players, they are look closely into this, area, and, very actively looking for the solutions. And we had a great, conversation with a lot of them. And we have good, follow-up discussions. And that's why, actually, just like our another co-founder, Kevin, right now is in Singapore. And he's invited by Cisco. And there is the Cisco EDB blockchain summit he will attend, and also will give speech in terms of how, to bring down the barrier of, mass adoption to the supply chain specifically. Right, and we definitely see there are a lot of the progress in the supply chain wise, and just like we are engaged with those medical supply chains, cold chain supply chain, all different types of supply chain and supply chain finance. All of them, they are see just like if inputting, the IoT related or IoT friendly blockchain is very important. At the same time, blockchain itself is not enough. It's a critical part, but it's only part of the entire solution. And for us, actually, our uniqueness will be, we are not only just provide the blockchain, we provide, the entire solution. And also there are a lot of the tools, and, the application which is needed for, solving the problems in this industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important to take that very open kind of communication and collaboration approach, because, we as a blockchain and technology company have certain skill set, but really understanding how to utilize this technology in the real world requires a very open two-way communication channel between different partners and different enterprises and eventual users, right?
Yeah, I think those real solid progress in terms of partnership and also the the POC, the project progress, right? So this will lead to a much larger awareness, right? So that's why just like more and more people, industry leaders, they notice Altex are building up a very solid platform. And also just like when you look at GitHub, team working very hard day and night, you will see we are one of the most active tech project on the GitHub. A lot of the committee and also a lot of people they are just like watching us our progress, and also you will see many people they already fork our code and to implement with our tech. So that's also some of the good sign, and for us to bring the attention to the tech community.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we have about 10 minutes left. We have a number of questions here from the audience, so maybe we'll do some more rapid fire answers to get through all of them. It's going to be tough to rapid fire this one, but what future do you see in the next 5 years? I guess both for IoTeX and for the blockchain industry.
Yeah. I'm very sure that I will be still within IoTeX.
Yeah.
Because there are so many things that I want to achieve in IoTeX. Yeah, and it will be, just like a huge progress, and you will see it's not just like the paper IoTeX, or it's not like still people are talking about the concept. I think in 5 years you will see, IoTeX and blockchain will be in people's life.
It's great. That's a good answer. I like that.
Yeah, I think now it's still very early age for the blockchain, and within next 5 years, currently people just exploring the different directions for the blockchain and in the different application area. Yeah, I think the next 5 years when we're getting better understanding, and especially from the requirement of the application, we can really build the product. Can get into people's life.
Absolutely. So October 26th, 2023. We can do another one of these AMAs and see if your predictions are correct.
Let's mark this date, okay?
Yeah. The next question is around working with kind of governments and government agencies. Any plans to circle in governments into kind of the business side of things? And I guess, do you plan to communicate with governments or to help support the project?
I think that's a great question. Yeah, so I would say just that we really understand the government's concern, because tech itself, you will say, okay, tech itself, they have no good and bad. It's a kind of both sides, swords. But actually, just like government will have the concern to make sure it will not do evil to the society, right? So in terms of the money laundering, so all those things, of course they want to avoid. And for all those real projects, they want to do the business, they have to have very good communication with government. And for us, we have another approach, actually, just like you will say IoT, in our vision, IoT will be everywhere, Internet of Things, right? And for government, just a lot of government right now, they are looking at the smart cities, how to make the cities have intelligence, all those devices will be connected and can really for society's good, right? For us, actually, just like in this perspective, we are actually working with the government to see, just like we will be part of their solutions when they are moving forward towards the smart cities. Definitely, smart device IoT will be very important part, and those 5G connectivity solutions, those AI solutions will be important. But blockchain will be also very important.
Yeah,
critical part. Right, so we will be just like in this perspective, we will be working very closely with the government, and nothing will be regulations. Regulation is definitely one of the key parts, and we make sure just like when you want to do the certain business in the certain country, you have to be compliant with the regulation locally. So that's very important as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Great. This next question is around from one of our community members, Simone. Could you explain in simple words how the very first group of block producers will be selected to kind of bootstrap the mainnet? And we touched a little bit on this topic around like working with major institutions and also kind of motivated individuals. But for anyone that is, I guess, looking forward to being a block producer, what steps can they take starting right now to kind of help their cause to become a block producer when the mainnet launches?
Yeah, so actually, we will see, we are more, inclined to the approach, it will be open to the community. It's not just like closed, we select, pre-select those, nodes, but definitely it will be, we will just like kind of evaluate, how we set up the criteria. There is a minimum criteria, for people to apply, right? And this will be higher or be lower, so we need to evaluate. Especially just like for the first stage, because there are actually a lot of the security issues. We can imagine the primary stage, the system is not really stable. So it will need more contributions from the block producers. For example, we want them to just like be online and be supportive, so that just like if there's problems, they will be very responsive, and then just like help us to reboost, for example, right? The network, something like that. So that just like we make sure, just like that those people, when they apply for the project, they can let us know, their background, what kind of, just like the motivations, and also what kind of resources, and if they can make sure if they can, provide a very, very responsive support to the network.
Yeah, it's important to remember that it's not just a qualitative decision. A lot of people are wondering what's the number and what's the number of tokens you have to stake, but there's a lot of quantitative testing, rigorous testing to see how these kind of decisions around number of nodes or number of staked tokens affect the consensus part of things and the security part of things. So
yeah, and also just like at the early stage, the system is a little bit vulnerable, right? So that we may just like put more control, easy for that. And once the system is become more and more robust, and then just like it will be more and more dynamic, and also also just like open to everybody. It will be a very dynamic mechanism, and you will see just like when you look at the US, they also go through the similar process, right? I mean, just like the early stage, it's more controlled, And then right now, just like it's more and more robust.
Absolutely. So this next question is around any potential working partnerships with Block Cloud. I think I can answer this one. IoTeX in the past couple of months, we've released a number of partnership announcements. And even though we have those defined partners, we're also working with a number of companies kind of behind the scenes. We're getting to the point where we don't really need we don't feel the need to announce things before we generate real impact or real progress, right? Like for example, with NKN, we didn't announce until we actually completed the proof of concept. So, similar thing with a lot of other companies, including Block Cloud. We had an initial meeting with them. We admire their technology and think there's ways to collaborate in the future, but we really have to dig deep to see what exactly the real tangible output is. And we have about 4 minutes left. 2 more questions, one from Serge. Hi, Serge. The component base of a IoT system may be too expensive and maybe can't pay for itself, not sustainable in the long term. So how do you think blockchain and IoT will kind of remove some of these barriers? Today it's very expensive to stand up your independent IoT infrastructure, and also even more expensive to kind of maintain it. How does blockchain kind of help solve that problem?
Well, I think one is the incentive mechanisms you can deploy in the IoT systems that blockchain can help, which can somehow sustain the IoT systems and motivate the IoT device to contribute to the entire IoT systems. I think that's one. I think that's a quite unique approach blockchain bring to the IoT world. Yeah, I think the other aspect is compared to the existing IoT infrastructure from device to gateway to cloud, and blockchain can based on blockchain we can build a new architecture to see how we can optimize the storage usage for the huge amount of IoT data, how we can further simplify the requirement for the IoT device in order to use blockchain functionality. That's all the different technical aspects we can continue working on to further reduce the entire cost for the system.
Yeah, one thing I've heard is blockchain can help democratize access to devices and allow people to share devices, almost as infrastructure as a service, or even device as a service, data as a service.
Yeah.
What can you tell us?
Directions for the IoT devices. Now people already have multiple devices. You may use for yourself for only a very short limited time of the time, right? And the sharing economy is also a unique feature for the blockchain. You have your own device sit at home, and if you go to work, right, you can share part of your device to people who really need that for processing data, to running the certain computation, or for storing the amount of data. While it's a very unique and interesting solution, you have to be very careful for building this type of solution. Because you are sharing your device or sharing your software running on top of the device, which brings the new challenge when you design the security solution to ensure your system is still secure as before.
Right. Awesome. We're almost up on time. We have one last question here from Marius. What are you guys up to this weekend? And for people that don't know, actually in Silicon Valley, October and November is considered summertime, at least in the San Francisco Bay Area, in actual summer.
Including you.
Yeah, including us, So maybe I can start. There's a big concert tonight. Drake and Migos are in town, so I'm going to be doing that. But generally, a lot of the IoTeX team works on some days of the weekend on Saturdays. But outside of that, what do you guys have planned? What does a typical weekend look like?
Okay. I think Xinxin's birthday is very soon.
That's true. Any big plans for your birthday?
No. Actually, this weekend I need to wrap up a lot of work. and leave for Toronto, the very cold place.
Oh yeah.
Right, we're headed to
Sunday
Toronto.
night.
Yeah.
Next week will be for conference.
Got it.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, so actually, just like both our two co-founders they are in Asia, and Lauren will come back, tonight. So we will have a wrap up meeting to see what's going on in Asia, and then just like we will plan for 2 events. One is in Toronto,
Yeah.
right? I mean for the COSCOM conference, and also we will have a session which will be we will go to Waterloo University and for recruiting.
Yeah.
So if you are around the Waterloo and Toronto, and also if you are really fresh graduate and really want to join the blockchain, so it's a great opportunity to meet with us. And also just like me and Larry, we will prepare for our event to go to New York City very soon, next week. Right, so that's all. And also just like the Halloween will be approaching very soon. We will prepare for the Halloween festival. Yeah, so also wish you have happy Halloween.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And last thing, we actually are setting up a meetup in Toronto on Monday, the 29th. We're going to do this along with Bitcoin Bay, who they are part of the Decentral kind of family. Decentral, if you guys aren't familiar, a lot of the Ethereum founders actually came from there. Vitalik is very close with that group, so we're gonna be holding a meetup on Monday in Toronto, and look out for more announcements. But thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your busy days. Hope you guys enjoyed the questions, and look forward to more live AMAs in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.